Alright my fellow agents, welcome back to the Gaming Brigade, and as all of you know by now, I never want to waste your time here at the channel, and the reason I mention that as we start this video off is because today's build breakdown is really an amalgamation of some of my most recent builds that I've posted here at the channel. So chances are, if you've seen my build videos over the last few weeks, you've already seen exactly what I'm going to be revisiting today, but a lot of you reach out saying you love when I put these videos together, so I will continue to do so. Now with that being said, this week will mark the start of Year 8 Season 1. They haven't officially announced it as yet, but everything points to the fact that it should start this Thursday. Once we have confirmation, I will bring you a news update letting you know exactly what's going on, and my hope is that tomorrow on Monday, we actually get an update from the game saying that there's going to be a live stream talking about next season. Now as we make our way to the build breakdowns, and as always, I will leave timestamps in the video description, that way you can bounce in between the builds anytime you want. Many of you have reached out asking me my thoughts on prototype gear and escalation, and I do have a lot of concerns at this point. And as I said a moment ago, once we get some new information from the game, I'll put together a video, break down my thoughts, and more importantly, we'll talk about what's going on in the community because there's certain things we cannot ignore. That's all I got for this introduction, my friends. Thank you once again for everything, and with that being said, let's cut right to the footage. Now as far as the specialization is concerned, for both versions of the build you're about to see, we are using Technician, and there are two main reasons for that. First of all, it gives you access to the linked laser pointer, and you can equip that to any long-barreled weapon, and that is going to automatically pulse every single enemy you target, and that comes into play with the talent on our weapon in our gear set. Now the other benefit of this specialization is that it also gives you access to the Artificer Hive, and that is going to increase your shield efficiency and duration. And for those of you out there who have no idea how this thing works, I promise to give you a breakdown when we get to the gameplay footage. Last but not least, I want to pass along the friendly reminder that you have to have the rifle activated in your weapon skill tree to have access to that linked laser pointer. Then the other two weapons are going to be your primary and secondary. Now, as far as your primary is concerned, you have so many different options, right? I mean, you're going to see one version of this build with the Lexington, another great option is the Kingbreaker. And when we compare these weapons side by side, you're going to notice a few major differences. Now, when we look at the Lexington, you can see its RPM is 935, total damage is 119.46. As far as the Kingbreaker is concerned, the RPM is much lower, the base damage is higher, but remember the Kingbreaker has the talent Perfect Flatline, which is going to amplify weapon damage by 20% to pulsed enemies. Remember with the linked laser pointer, that is every single enemy you target. Whereas the Lexington can only have the regular talent Flatline attached to it, which is going to amplify weapon damage by 15% to pulsed enemies. So always remember, my friends, this is just a template. The most important thing is to take your time, make a build your own, and see which one you enjoy using more. Now, as far as the secondary is concerned, you can see I'm using the Stack Broker. This was granted out by the game a little while back. Hopefully you do have one in your inventory. Now, the reason we're using this is because it has a much faster RPM, and that is going to help you build those stacks for Heartbreaker at a much faster rate. And as far as the sidearm is concerned, you can see I'm using the Quick Step because it has the Talent Sport mode, which is going to increase my movement speed by 20% anytime I'm holding this weapon. And that's one of the reasons you're seeing agents being able to rip around the map as quickly as they are. It's because of that talent. So hopefully during the last event, you were able to pick one up. Now making our way to the gear itself, you can see we're running 3 Heartbreaker, 2 of the new unit alloys brand set, as well as the Ninja Bike backpack. Now most of you know exactly how this thing works, but if you don't, you can see it has the talent Resourceful. Slots in with any equipped gear set and or brand set item to fulfill a requirement towards unlocking a gear set's bonus. Now that simply means, despite only having 3 pieces of the Heartbreaker gear set equipped, we do get the 4-piece bonus. You can see 2 pieces 15% assault rifle and LMG damage, 3 pieces 15% weapon handling, and 4 pieces Heartstopper. Headshots are going to apply pulse for 5 seconds, but remember, because we have that linked laser pointer equipped, that is going to pulse every single enemy we target, and I'll circle back to that topic at the end of the build breakdown. Continuing on, you can see weapon hits on pulsed enemies adds a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1.1% weapon damage up to a max of 50 stacks. Moving on to the body armor, it's the first of 2 pieces of the unit alloys brand set, but once again, because of the Ninja Bike, we do get all of the brand set bonuses. They are 5% rate of fire, 20% assault rifle damage, and 50% magazine size. You will also notice I'm using the named body armor, the Equalizer, because it has the talent Perfect Obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 24 times. Next, we have the holster, second piece of unit alloys. This is the named holster, the Salvo. And we are using this for that middle attribute, 5% rate of fire. So just by equipping this holster by itself, you're getting an extra 10% rate of fire, which you're really going to notice when you're actually using different weapons in the game. As far as the knee pads and the gloves are concerned, final two pieces of the Heartbreaker gear set. You'll notice I'm stacking crit hit chance and crit hit damage everywhere I can. Now, as promised, at this point I want to show you another variation really quick. What I'm going to do is the following. We are going to put on a piece of Heartbreaker for the backpack. We are going to switch the knee pads to a second piece of the unit alloys. And we're going to change the body armor to a piece of Heartbreaker, as you can see. Now, the reason we're making this change is because when we have the Heartbreaker body armor equipped, we have access to the talent max BPM, and that is going to increase max stacks for Heartstopper from 50 to 100. As I said a moment ago, our holster and the knee pads are going to be the two pieces of the unit alloys brand set. And finally, when we make our way to the backpack, once again, because we are wearing a Heartbreaker bag, we're going to have access to the Talent Cold, and that increases the bonus armor gain per stack of Heartstopper from 1% to 2%. And for the record, in the gameplay footage you are about to see, I'm going to use the following build. We are going to have the Kingbreaker as the primary, Stackbroker as the secondary. We're going to have this exact layout you're looking at right now, 4 pieces of the Heartbreaker gear set. We have the Unit Alloys holster, Unit Alloys knee pads. As far as my skills are concerned, I'm using the Crusader Shield and the Artificer Hive. Last but not least, I want to mention the fact that in the gameplay footage you're looking at right now, I do not have any global modifiers active whatsoever, and the reason for that is I want to ensure that whenever you see this video, you know exactly what the build can do without any special events. Hope this helped you out, my friends, and as always, questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can.
Agent, I need you to kill those cleaners.
Agent, hostiles are moving into Brooklyn Heights.
Now, as always, we're going to jump right into the details, and if you happen to enjoy this, do me a favor and hit that like button. It truly helps the channel out. And if you want to stay up to speed on all things Division, feel free to hit that subscribe or join button as well. Now, starting with the specialization, we are using Technician. Doing that for the following reasons. First of all, you get that extra skill tier, which means you can spec into armor or weapon damage as your core attribute on a different piece of gear. You also have access to the Talent Overclock CPU that's going to give you an extra 10% skill damage bonus. And always remember, please make sure to have the proper weapons activated in your weapon skill tree. That way you're getting a 15% weapon damage bonus regardless of which one you're using. Now, as far as the primary and secondary weapons are concerned, they are totally interchangeable. It's up to you. But as you can see on screen, my primary weapon is the Harmony Rifle. I'm using this because it has the talent perfectly in sync. Hitting an enemy grants 20% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with a skill grants 20% weapon damage for 5 seconds as well. And not only that, but damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. Making our way to the secondary weapon, it's the Capacitor. As you've heard me mention in previous videos, this is another one of those must-have exotics. It has the talent Capacitance. Shooting enemies builds stacks to a cap of 40. Each stack is going to grant 1.5% skill damage, and you can also see for every skill tier you have, you're also going to gain an extra 7.5% weapon damage. So because we're sitting at skill tier 6, it means we're going to get an extra 45% weapon damage bonus when we're using this weapon. And in the meantime, if you do not have either of the weapons I just mentioned, you can use the test subject. It also has the talent perfectly in sync. You can also feel free to use your favorite assault rifle or rifle combination, whatever you want, with the regular talent in sync. I can promise you that will still get the job done. Now making our way to the gear itself, you can see we're running 3 Empress International, 1 Wyvern, 1 Hannah U, and the Waveform holster. Now starting with the mask, it's the first of 3 pieces of the Empress International. We're running 3 so we get all of the brand set bonuses. 10% skill health, 10% skill damage, and 8% skill efficiency. Next we have the body armor. It is the new named body armor, the Impetus. This is going to be a guaranteed reward when you get to level 25 in the anniversary season. It's in the free track, but for the record, it also happens to be in the general loot pool, so if you want to farm for it, you do have that option as well. Now you can see it has the talent Perfect Kinetic Momentum. When in combat, each skill generates a stack while active or not on cooldown. Stacks increase your total skill damage by 1.5% and total skill repair by 2%, up to 18 stacks per skill. Moving on to the holster, we're using the Waveform with its talent Alternating Current. Generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second, capping at 10 stacks. After 10 seconds at the cap, the stacks transfer to your other skill. The process then repeats non-stop. Next, we have the knee pads. They are the second piece of Empress International. After that, we have the gloves. It's the 1 piece of Hannah U, and you'll notice that second attribute is Armor Regen. I'd much rather it be Skill Haste, Skill Duration, but again, this is just what I have to put this build together. Finally, my friends, we have the backpack, third and final piece of Empress, and as you can see, I'm using the Talent Tech Support. Skill kills are going to increase skill damage by 25% for 25 seconds. That is an absolute lifetime in this game, so remember, let the skills do the killing for you. As far as my skills are concerned, I'm using the combination of the Assault Drone and the Assault Turret. However, to be very clear, you can use any skill combination you want, my friends. This just happens to be my favorite. Let me know what yours are in the comment section down below, and as always, questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can.
Reinforcements incoming. Detecting additional hostile contacts.
Now, starting with the specialization, you definitely want to use Technician, and you're choosing that for a few main reasons. First of all, you get that extra skill tier, which means you can spec into armor or weapon damage on one of your other pieces of gear. This specialization also gives you an extra 12% damage to drone skill proxies and robotics, and trust me when I say you're going to run into a ton of those on legendary difficulty. You also have access to the Talent Overclock CPU that will give you an extra 10% skill damage as well. And always remember, you need to make sure you have the proper weapons activated in your weapon skill tree. That way you're getting a 15% weapon damage bonus regardless of which one you're using. Now, my primary weapon for this build is the Harmony Rifle. This is just the go-to gun that I use when I'm using a skill build. Now, this does happen to be a PvP exclusive, but you can also get it from name caches as well. And the reason it is so effective is because it has the talent perfectly in sync. Hitting an enemy grants 20% skill damage for 5 seconds. Using a non-shield skill or damaging an enemy with the skill grants 20% weapon damage for 5 seconds as well. And not only that, damage increases are doubled while both buffs are active at the same time. Next, we have the secondary weapon, which as you can see is the capacitor. This is one of those must-have exotics in the game, and the reason it is so effective is because it has the talent capacitance. Shooting enemies builds stacks to a cap of 40. Each stack is going to grant 1.5% skill damage, and not only that, for every skill tier you have equipped, you're going to get an extra 7.5% weapon damage as well. And because we're sitting at skill tier 6 for this build, it means we're getting an extra 45% weapon damage on this thing right off the rip. Now, another great option is using the Test Subject AR that also has the talent perfectly in sync. Now, one friendly reminder I like to pass along anytime I put a skill build together is that if you happen to use the TDI card custom as your sidearm, you can see it has a skill tier, but to be clear, that skill tier is only active when the weapon is in your hand, so you need to make sure you take that into consideration. Now, moving on to the gear itself, you can see we're running 2 Hannah U and 4 Refactor. And for those of you out there who are just getting used to a skill build or legendary difficulty, I strongly recommend trying this gear set out. Now you can see the 2-piece bonus is 15% status effects, 3 pieces 25% skill damage, and 4 pieces return to sender. Receive repairs of 10% of the damage dealt by your skills, and if you happen to be rolling in a group, your allies will receive repairs of 20% of the damage dealt by your skills. Next, we have the body armor. It's the first of 2 pieces of Hannah U. Now, I happen to be using the Talent Glass Cannon on this version of the build. However, another great option is Kinetic Momentum. Moving on to the holster, the knee pads, and the gloves, they are the 3 remaining pieces of the Refactor gear set. And one thing I'm doing on every single piece of gear is stacking skill damage and a combination of skill haste and skill duration everywhere I can. Last but not least, we have the backpack. That is the second piece of Hannah U. We're using the named backpack, the Force Multiplier, because it has the Talent Perfect combined arms. Shooting an enemy increases total skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. Finally, as far as the skills are concerned, I'm using one of my favorite combinations in the game, which is the Assault Drone and the Assault Turret. But if you happen to prefer something else, you can use that as well. I'd also like to mention in the gameplay footage you're about to see, I do not have any global modifiers turned on. There are no season events going on either. And the main reason for that is I want to ensure that whenever you see this build, you know exactly what it can do without any special events going on. Hope this helped you out, my friends, and as always, questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. Starting with the specialization, we're using Gunner. Doing that for that extra armor on kill, you get a reload speed increase, you have access to the Banshee Pulse, you get some extra rate of fire, extra weapon handling when you're in cover, which you will be when you're using this build. And always remember to make sure you have the LMG activated in your weapon skill tree. And the reason I mention that in every single build video I post is because a lot of players out there, including myself, we use the same template for different builds. You forget to switch the weapons, then you're leaving 15% weapon damage on the table, and you do not want to make that mistake. Now obviously my primary weapon for this build is the big Alejandro LMG. I'm telling you right now, fellow agents, this is going to be one of those must-have exotics in the game, and I know it's going to be a bit of a grind to get the thing, but it will definitely be worth it. And as you can see, it has the talent cover shooter. Every bullet fired while in cover increases weapon damage by 1% up to 100%. The bonus is going to last for 15 seconds, however, getting a kill with this weapon while in cover will reset the duration. But the last part's very important. They say the bonus damage is cancelled by reloading, swapping weapons, or exiting combat. Now the reason that's such an important detail is because I know a lot of players out there, including myself, anytime there's a break in the action, we have that muscle memory, we reload our weapon. So there does happen to be a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to this weapon, but to put it bluntly, keep your foot to the floor when you're using this thing and you will be absolutely shredding enemies left and right. Now making our way to the gear itself, you can see we're running 4 tipping scales, 1 unit alloys, and the Overdogs gloves. Starting with the mask, it's the first of 4 pieces of tipping scales. We're doing that so we get all of the gear set bonuses. 2 pieces 30% magazine size, 3 pieces 30% LMG damage. 4 pieces throttle control, shooting build stacks to a max of 50. Each stack is going to provide 0.5% weapon handling and 4% critted damage. You lose 6 stacks per second while not shooting, and no stacks are lost if the enemy is suppressed. Next we have the body armor, and for the record, you can use so many different brand sets if you want. For me, for this build, I'm using the 1 piece of unit alloys. That's going to give me an extra 5% rate of fire increase, and I'm using the named body armor, the equalizer, because that has the talent perfect obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 24 times. Another great option is a piece of Petrov that's going to give you some extra LMG damage bonus. You could also use a piece of Grupo if you want, totally up to you. I prefer running with the talent obliterate. However, I know a lot of players out there use the talent glass cannon. So again, my friends, remember this is just a template. Take your time, make it build your own, kick the tires, and see which one you prefer using. Continuing on to the holster and the knee pads, they are 2 more pieces of the tipping scales gear set, and you will notice I am doing my best to stack crit hit chance and crit hit damage everywhere I can. Next we have the gloves, and as you can see, they are the Overdogs. They have the talent weakest link. That is going to amplify weapon damage by 30% to the lowest ranking enemy currently in combat. If you don't have these as yet, I recommend using Contractor's gloves, and I will leave a link to a farming video showing you how to get the Overdogs if you don't have them at the moment. Last but not least, my friends, we have the backpack. It is the 4th and final piece of the tipping scales gear set, and because we're wearing that bag, we have access to the talent snowball, and that is going to increase the crit hit damage received per stack from 4 to 7, so that is a nice little jump right there. As far as the skills are concerned, for this version of the build, I'm using a combination of the Banshee Pulse and the Fixer Drone, but you can use whatever you want. And finally, as you can see on screen, another great option is to just run Striker. This is one of the best gear sets in the game, and most of you know that. And all I've done is the following. I've switched the 4 pieces to Striker instead of tipping scales. And once again, this is where trying out different builds is incredibly important. With Striker, you're going to get a much higher RPM. However, your magazine size is going to be 60 rounds less. So a lot of players out there, because of the talent, may want that extra magazine size. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and as always, any other questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know as well, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. Hello once again, my fellow agents. I hope everyone is doing well on this fine day. So remember that one time long ago when I told you not to reload when you're using this weapon? Guess what I did non-stop in the gameplay footage you're looking at? I was reloading this thing every single moment there was a break in the action, so just keep your foot to the floor, because the last thing you want to do is constantly cancel that damage bonus. Now the last thing I want to mention really quick is that in the gameplay footage you are looking at, I do not have any global modifiers running whatsoever. I know that's something I referenced at the beginning of the video, and the reason they're turned off is I want to ensure that whenever you see this thing, you know exactly what it can do without any special events going on. That's going to do it for my part, my friends. Thank you once again for everything, and I will see you in the next one.
Dead. Agent, do what you have to do to secure the clinic. We can't give up. There could still be survivors inside.
I got this!
Assistance needed.
I thought you were supposed to be dead! Resupplying the drone! Ready to go!
We'll bury our dead and move the supplies you recovered back to the bridge. We'll find Danvers and make him...
Now for all three builds you're about to see, we are using the gunner specialization, doing that for the typical reasons. You get some armor on kill, reload speed increase, access to the Banshee Pulse, you have some extra rate of fire as well. And always remember to make sure you have the proper weapons activated in your weapon skill tree. That way you're going to get an extra 15% weapon damage bonus regardless of which one you're using. And the reason I say this in every build video is because a lot of players out there, we use the same template for different builds. You don't switch the weapon, then you're leaving weapon damage on the table, and you do not want to make that mistake. Now, needless to say, my primary weapon for all three builds is the Pestilence. This is one of those must-have exotics for every player out there. And the reason this is so effective is because it has the talent Plague of the Outcast. Hits applied to buff dealing 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds. It stacks up to 50 times. And whenever an enemy dies with this debuff, 100% of the stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. Now, for those of you out there who do not have this weapon, thankfully it is in the general loot pool. You can farm for it anywhere the LMG is the targeted loot. I recommend hitting up Countdown or the Summit or Retaliation and set your targeted loot to LMGs. As far as the secondary and sidearm is concerned, totally up to you. However, if you do have the quick step, I recommend using that because when that weapon is in your hand, you get an extra 20% movement speed bonus. Now making our way to the gear itself, you can see we're running 4 tipping scales, 1 unit alloys, and the Overdogs gloves. Starting with the mask, it's the first of 4 pieces of tipping scales. We're running 4 so we get all of the gear set bonuses. The 2 pieces 30% magazine size, 3 pieces 30% LMG damage, 4 pieces throttle control. Shooting build stacks to a max of 50. Each stack provides 0.5% weapon handling and 4% crit hit damage. Lose 6 stacks per second while not shooting, and no stacks are lost if the enemy is suppressed. Next we have the body armor. It's the 1 piece of unit alloys. That is going to give us an extra 5% rate of fire. And you can see I'm using the named body armor, the Equalizer, because of its talent Perfect Obliterate. Critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 24 times. After that, my friends, we have the holster and the knee pads, 2 more pieces of the tipping scales gear set. And you'll notice I'm doing my best to stack crit hit chance and crit hit damage everywhere I can. Right after that, we have the Overdogs gloves, and these have quickly become one of the most popular exotics in the game. The reason for it is because of the talent weakest link, and that is going to amplify weapon damage by 30% to the lowest ranking enemy currently in combat as per the tier hierarchy. These are also in the general loot pool, and just like the Pestilence, you can farm for these anywhere the gloves are the targeted loot. Last but not least, my friends, we have the backpack. That is the 4th and final piece of tipping scales, and because we're wearing a tipping scales bag, we have access to the talent Snowball, and that is going to increase the critical hit damage gain per stack from 4 to 7. Now at this point, we are going to highlight another build you can put together based around the Pestilence. This version has 3 Langmo, 1 Overlord, 1 Petrov, and the Catharsis mask, which is what we're starting with. Now this is, again, another one of those exotics you definitely want to pick up. It is in the general loot pool, just like the Pestilence and the Overdogs, and this has the Talent Vicious Cycle. Taking damage builds stacks to a cap of 30, and each stack is going to grant 1.5% weapon damage. Taking damage at max stacks triggers a purge, removing all stacks and status effects, then dropping a healing cloud which restores 5% of max armor for 10 seconds to all allies in the cloud. Next we have the body armor. It's the first of 3 pieces of Langmo. We're running 3 because we are targeting that 3rd brand set bonus, which is that 30% LMG damage. You can also see we're using the talent Obliterate, where critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 20 times. It is not the perfect version. Another great option is Glass Cannon if you want to use that. Next we have the holster, 2nd piece of Langmo. Right after that we have the knee pads. It's the 1 piece of Overlord, and we're using the named knee pads Fox's Prayer for that middle attribute, 8% damage, 2 targets out of cover. Next we have the gloves. It's the 1 piece of Petrov. That's going to give us an extra 10% LMG damage bonus, and because we're using Contractor's gloves, we also get that middle attribute, 8% damage to armor. And actually, in regard to the previous build I showed you with tipping scales, if you don't have the Overdogs, you could definitely use Contractors in its place. Last but not least, we have the Backbone Backpack. It is the 3rd and final piece of Langmo, and we are using this for its talent Perfectly Unstoppable Force. Killing an enemy increases total weapon damage by 7% for 15 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Which now takes us to the third and final build of this video. What I've done is the following. We've switched the mask to a piece of Lengmo. I've also changed the holster to the named unit alloys holster, the salvo, because just having this thing equipped is going to give us an extra 10% rate of fire. Once again, we're using Fox's Prayer knee pads as far as the gloves are concerned. For this version, I'm using the Overdogs. If you don't have those, you could once again use Contractors. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, the skills. Now, typically when I run this build, I'm going to use the combination of the Banshee Pulse and the Fixer Drone, or I also like to use the Booster Hive and the Fixer Drone. It's totally up to you, my friends. Always remember, this is just a template. Take your time, make a build your own. Hope this thing helped you out, and as always, questions, comments, or feedback, please let me know, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. On that note, I'm going to leave you with some gameplay footage and a few final thoughts. As always, I want to take a moment and thank you all for your incredible continued support. Please let me know of any other questions you have I did not address. Thank you once again for the privilege of your time, and as I mention at the end of every one of these, take care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, everyone. Alright, so a few things I want to address really quick. First of all, the build you are going to see in the gameplay footage is the tipping scales build, and if I had to choose one out of the three, that'd be the one I'd use nonstop. I mean, that's honestly kind of the one I do use nonstop, but I know people like variations, so I'm just showing you a few other options you do have. I'd also like to mention that in the gameplay footage you're looking at right now, I do not have any global modifiers active whatsoever. I do not have a global event turned on. The main reason for that is to ensure that whenever you see this video, you know exactly what the build can do without any special events taking place. That's all I got for this video, my friends. Thank you once again for everything, and I will see you in the next one.
Assistance needed. Reinforcements incoming. Detecting additional hostile contacts. Detected. Nearby location. Guarded by hostiles.
showing up.
Supply room access unlocked.
You don't really think through.
Hey, that's great!
Hostiles guarding location nearby.